Do you like fantasy football and sports betting? Come join us here at the Parlay Fantasy Football Podcast, where hosts Matt, Shane, and Jason talk about fantasy players, lineups, and sports betting to help you compete and win championships. And of course, some extra cash. Let's jump right into the show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Parlay Fantasy Football Podcast. Jason on his screen with his hand. Don't know why, but it's Matt back with you. As always, joined by Jason and Shane on this lovely evening. How are you guys doing tonight?
Oh, I am doing fantastic, sir. It is great to be back. We are literally from today, actually almost, we're 18 minutes past, but almost to exact when the NFL draft will be happening. So this is my favorite time of the year. This is when all the hype happens. This is when, people make and break careers, and, everybody holds receipts for forever. Like, I was right about that guy, or I was on Puka, or, all of the fun things that happen from this. So yeah, this is just such a fun time to be in fantasy football.
Yeah, glad to be back. Glad to see y'all's beautiful faces. Still kind of recovering from a Masters hangover over the weekend. I don't really think I moved from my couch very much, but this is arguably one of the greatest 2-week stretches of the year, having the Masters, then immediately following it up, it is the NFL draft. So glad to be diving back into it, going deep and seeing what we can cook up and see what we can predict.
Yeah, so, and as you guys saw by the headlines, today we are going to be talking about the top 5 tight ends. Depending on how much time we are into it, we might go a few more, just depends on time. We're also going to have Shane, the man, do a little draft preview for you guys, what he's most excited about, what he's looking for, and just touch on some key points. Jason and I will jump in and chat a little bit. But that being said, guys, we're so glad to be back in the studio. We're glad for all you subscribers that are continuing to show us support, continuing to show us a love, and we hope that you guys continue to share it. Share that love. Spread it out now. Okay, give us a follow, subscribe on all the podcasting platforms. If you guys want to find us on our social media sites, you can find myself at Matt_ParlayFF, Shane at ShaneParlayFF, and Jason at JasonParlayFF. Do we have any news?
No, just technical difficulties. Sorry for those of you that are watching the YouTube later or now. Either one. My bad. I hit the wrong transition. But yeah, other than that, the only news is Rashee Rice may be facing significant jail time, and J.K. Dobbins signed to the L.A. Chargers. So,
a little reunion with the old Gus bus, baby.
Yeah, and also Greg Roman. Like, he literally gets his 2-headed monster back in. What a nice landing spot. And they got him for cheap, and they got him for 1 year. And, like, now I certifiably want nothing to do with the Chargers offense, though. That's my one thing. I don't want a single piece of anybody involved. Unless it's like Marvin Harrison at 5, in which case, like, right. I could be convinced. You can twist my arm, I think. Maybe Roma Dunze at like 9 when they trade back with the Vikings. Something like that.
Getting a little into
some
draft
just a little head bob, yeah. But no, like that's the only things that's really happened that are cool, which is
right.
Everybody's just ramping up at this point.
Yeah, there hasn't been a whole lot of stuff going on just because, like you said, everybody's ramping up. The last in-house visits are wrapping up. They're all getting ready and geared up for the draft. So there's going to be some things. There's going to be some things happening. Jason just put himself on hold. He's back now.
Hey Matt, did you hear the
Jim.
rumor that the Bills and the Steelers have a trade in place for draft day?
I have not heard that rumor.
There are significant rumors that the Bills will trade their first-round pick and a fourth-round pick for the Steelers. Possibly there could be more involved, but for the Steelers' first-round pick to move up from 28 to 20, where you guys are picking. I'm assuming that would be to secure a wide receiver. But yeah, just thought that was, a fun, interesting thing that's been swirling.
I can see that. I think that Steelers, in my personal opinion, I think they're going to be taking a first round. Their first pick is going to be an offensive lineman. Unfortunately, that's just how it always works out in Steelers camp. They always take offensive linemen or defensive linemen. But I have different opinions on it just because, I don't know. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens when the draft day arises and when we get into it. But before we jump into it, guys, also, our website is live, guys. www.parlaypod.com is the website. I am currently working on the Patreon page to get that live for you guys because we have already been placing bets on the year, not just football bets, but all sports bets. And we're going to have basically a 3 or 4 tiered membership, guys, that you guys can sign up for and receive deals on each one of those deals. So be prepared, be ready for that, on the lookout. We will announce when it goes live, but the Patreon page is being worked on currently as we speak.
Yeah, and those of you that are on YouTube, you guys can see me displaying our beautiful, beautiful new webpage. And I was hovering the premium picks, which is where you would input your password to see all of our stuff. So that's a fun thing going on there. Go check us out on YouTube.
There you go. So, guys, keep that in mind. Like I said, we do appreciate all the support. So, that being said, let's just jump into the segment, boys. All right. Before we go over the tight end picks, Shane, do you want to talk? Do you want to do a little draft preview right now?
I would say we do the draft preview at the end because it'll tie into, I'm assuming, one of the players that somebody's going to mention at some point.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, and he's up there. So, okay, let's jump into the top 5 tight ends then. Who wants to go first? I'm guessing for dynasty purposes. Remember, dynasty ranking tight ends. I'm assuming we probably all have the same number 1, but for the podcast purpose, who do you guys have?
I have Sam Laporta. Is that what?
I didn't want to say it at first.
Yeah, I was like, are we? Yeah, and I'm not super confident he will be the tight end 1 next year. That's my big conundrum, is that I think that this is a very fluid group right now.
Yeah, I think honestly the top 5, at least in my top 5 rankings, and I'm guessing that we all have the same names in the top 5. They might just be in different orders, but Jason gave a little, I don't know. Okay, well, anyway, Sam Laporta, guys, the proof's in the pudding. You guys saw it last year. That connection between him and Jared Goff, that organization, they love Sam Laporta. He gets it done. He seems to make just absolutely fantastic catches, runs well with the ball. He's quick. He can block. And he's just your kind of all-around purpose tight end, right? He just does everything well. I mean, do you guys have any? Go ahead and give your 2 cents on it.
Oh, he's tight end U, baby. The Iowa tight end group that's just constant. We're going to name 4 of them probably from this group. So, he does all the things right, and that offense kind of revolves around the core players right now, and he has established himself as a core player. And yeah, for this foreseeable future, he will be at least in the top 5, if not the top 3.
Right,
Yeah.
and I don't see him slowing down, coming off 2 straight 50 catch seasons. I think he's just going to get better or stay with that target volume, and he gets targeted in the end zone a lot. So,
Yeah,
I mean, his value is right there.
Fantastic. Okay, Jason, who do you have at your number 2 dynasty tight end?
This is where it might get spicy for us, but I have Dalton Kincaid at my 2. I like Dalton Kincaid. I think with Diggs leaving, I think it's going to turn them more into the ground and pound run game, play action with Josh Allen, and look for Kincaid over the middle. He's a natural pass catcher coming out of Utah. I like him. I like what we've seen from him, and I think he's just going to keep on growing in that offense, and that relationship with him and Josh Allen is going to get better and better, and we're going to see him break out next year.
My love infatuation with Dalton Kincaid. I absolutely love the man. I love the player, and I think you hit all the right points. Okay. That's not who I have at number 2. I'm betting Shane and I probably have the same number 2 for dynasty purposes. I have Trey McBride. Is that who you have at 2, Shane?
I have flipped these two back and forth about 4 times. And it's actually one of them is Dalton Kincaid.
Okay.
And the other one is Brock Bowers.
Okay.
So no,
You
Matt,
have him that high. You have him that high. Wow.
I think that even like everybody's making a big deal about the testing, but there has never been a player that has absolutely dominated the position, and he's not a tight end. Like that's what everybody's misconstruing this as. He's not your traditional tight end. He is a blocker. He's a fantastic blocker. He's a wide receiver that is labeled tight end. And
yeah, he's athletic.
Yeah, and people who are like, "Oh, he didn't test. He didn't do this stuff." Like you guys are taking the combine not in the perspective of the guys that know that they're good are going to stop participating, because what's the point of the college season if what you're going to base your opinion on is 8 tests? While they do give a great snapshot of your athleticism, a guy who struggled through injury and rushed back last year to play in his last collegiate year and was dominant through 3 years of college football. He also balled out as a freshman. Like it's absurd. So yes, I have Bowers. I have Bowers at 3, and I have Kincaid at 2 right now.
Oh, okay.
But I have flipped them back and forth. I kid you not, there's just scribbles on my notepad right now because I just keep being like, I want Kincaid, I want Bowers, I want Kincaid, I want Bowers, I want Kincaid. Yeah. And this comes from my thought process of, if you were in a startup draft, this is how I always approach my rankings. If I were in a startup draft, which one of these players would I prefer to have? And McBride's up there. I just have a lot of questions of whether he's going to sustain his volume when they actually have pass catchers in the room. And I think that changes this year. I do think he's a fantastic talent. But I view him similar to like George Kittle. Like he's always going to be a top 5 option, but I don't ever know if he'll be the guy.
Mm-hmm. Good way.
I have Trey McBride at number 2 because I think he's going to see like 300 targets this year. They're going to draft MHJ. I mean, that's probably the consensus, right? And he's going to get his. But right now, in that room, you have McBride, and that is it. Now, when you get MHJ, you're going to have some volume there. But with all the hype that runs around MHJ and all these rookie receivers, teams are going to key in on that. And I think Trey McBride will get a little bit put in the background. I mean, he's already kind of getting put in the background. And what he did last year with how many different quarterbacks did he play with last
3.
year? 3 different quarterbacks, and he finished at tight end. Do you guys know what he finished at? I think he finished at tight end 2, I think, on the season. Tight end 3, maybe. I mean, he was definitely in the top 5. That guy showed some incredible athleticism, which we knew he had incredible athleticism coming out of Colorado State.
Which is tight end U part 2.
Yeah, true.
Right.
Which, I mean, we all kind of had questions about him coming out. You know, is he a little bit more of a lumbering tight end? But he showed a lot of athletic ability, and I still think even if they get 1 or 2 receivers in this draft, I still think Trey McBride's going to see a fair amount of targets just because he proved it last year, and they clearly like the guy, right? So I'm basing that off of pure volume that I feel like he will get this year, and for dynasty purposes, he's what 24, 25, 24, something like that.
He'll turn 25 this year.
Okay, so he'll turn 25 this year, right? So he's still in that really nice range. So I have Trey McBride just because I still don't think the Cardinals are going to amount to anything, and I still think he's going to see his fair share of targets this year. So you guys have, well, we know Shane has Dalton Kincaid at 3 or Brock Bowers at 3, one of those 2.
Yeah. I think that's 2A and 2B is what I would prefer to call it at this point with the scribbles on. Actually, while you were talking, I scribbled again, and then I crossed it out. So that's what you guys saw
I
me doing.
have-
Dude, I'm just like, I can't decide between the two.
Well, we kind of talked about it a little bit. I have Dalton Kincaid at my 3 spot right now. Dalton, you guys said it already. Dalton Kincaid just a one of those tight ends that doesn't remind you of tight end. Some of the stuff he does, he lays out for catches. He can block extremely well. It's hard to find those tight ends that will put their bodies out on the line to catch a pass.
Mm-hmm.
And Dalton Kincaid is one of those tight ends that does it extremely well. I do think with the Bills, we all kind of expect to draft a wide receiver with the release of Stephon Diggs. They did go out and pick up Curtis Samuel. Khalil Shakir is still there. I think it's still going to be a balanced offense, but I think Dalton Kincaid showed enough last year that he deserves some targets. And with what he can do with targets, I think he's going to turn those into fantasy points. And for dynasty tight ends, Dalton Kincaid has to be up there. I mean, he's just athletic and he's young.
Oh yeah, 100%. Vacated targets are massive in that room, and it wouldn't shock me if that trade with the Steelers does happen and the Bills go and get like Brian Thomas Jr. But if you're not locking down the top 3 guys, the immediate impact that the next tier of wide receivers will have is not the same. Like as far as like verifiable difference. So like,
right.
I feel like Kincaid has a very secure outcome for this year and probably even next year. And then it becomes a question of how much do they add at that point.
Yeah. Jason, who do you have at 3?
So this is where I've been going back and forth on mine, and I agree with you with the whole Trey McBride thing. I loved how he came on after at the end of the year with Kyler and their connection. Like you said, I think he went up to tight end 2 or 3 at the end of the year, just based on his production right there. I like his youth. I like how young he is, and I think he is going to maintain that with Kyler going forward.
Okay, so we have Sam Laporta, and then we're all pretty much in consensus with Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, and do you have Brock Bowers at your 3 spot, Shane, or is he at your 2 spot?
I have Bowers at my 3. So yeah, it's Laporta, Kincaid, Bowers.
Okay. So we're all pretty similar. So who do you have at your 4 then, Shane?
McBride. I do have McBride
Okay,
in the top 5 still. He just
right.
Yeah. Also he ended this tight end 9 last year.
Okay, so that's what he ended out.
Yeah. So you know.
But in the last like 5-6 weeks, he was definitely tight end 3 or something like that, because he would have never finished at tight end 9 because the first 7 weeks he didn't do anything. I mean, he was pretty much picked off waiver wires at like week 7 because he was nothing the first 5 weeks.
Yeah, the first 5 weeks he put up a combined 26 points.
Yeah, because Zach Ertz hadn't had his injury yet. Once Zach Ertz got injured, it was the Trey McBride show, and then he never gave it back.
Yeah, he went tight end 2. Let's see, 3. He had 5 top 5 tight end finishes after week 8. Well, including week 8, he had top 5. I can't speak. 5 top 5 finishes after week 8,
and that's what vaulted him to tight end 9. So,
yeah. Up our rankings.
Okay, so you have McBride. Jason, who do you have it for?
Mark Andrews.
Okay.
I think with him coming back last year, limited with his ankle injury, we all know what happened, but we know his connection with Lamar Jackson. He averaged 12.5 fantasy points a game in 4 straight seasons. I love his floor right there. He's getting up there in age. He's still only 28 years old. I think he's going to get back to prime Mark Andrews form next year, and they're only going to get better, and they're still going to utilize him in that offense just like they did before his injury.
Gotcha. And I'll just go quick, Shane. My tight end 4 is Brock Bowers. We've already kind of talked about him. I agree with everything that you guys both have said about him. I think he is the next generational talent. And in my personal opinion, I don't really care where he lands. I mean, I do in a way, but I don't, because I think he immediately walks into either being the top target or at least a 1B situation.
I mean,
Like,
everybody,
that guy is so good.
yeah, everybody and their mother lazy mocks him to the Jets.
Yeah,
So,
and if he went to the Jets, it's absolutely fantastic. I think he could definitely be one of the top targets, you know? He's just so incredibly good and gifted at everything that he does. If you go back and watch college tape on him, your jaw will drop. If you have not actually sat down and watched college tape on Brock Bowers himself, your jaw will drop if you do. He is a generational talent.
oh yeah, and if you're curious about how athletic he is, go check his Instagram and watch him do a backflip standing flat-footed. Just saying.
Yeah, the guy's incredible. He's an incredible athlete, and I think he will be a very good tight end in the NFL for years to come. So who do you have then at 5, Shane?
I have Andrews at 5, and
okay,
I swapped 5 like 3 times as well, because I honestly think the top 8 are pretty
similar.
Yeah. As far as like
agreed.
How much movement could exist here, I feel like next year's rankings are not this year's rankings, which is like always what you can say. But I think that this year is going to be very telling as to the future of some of these players and their true value in fantasy, because this is kind of a make or break year for guys like Kyle Pitts and Kincaid, like even McBride. Like, they have the opportunities given to them. If they don't produce this year with those opportunities, people are going to start trying to move them, because
right.
Yeah, it's a failing asset at that point, and people don't want it. So this is a strange time to be investing in tight ends, but it's a fun time because it's a mystery box. It could be a boat, or it could be something else.
Yeah, and then I'll just go. I have Andrews at 5 as well. It was very close, like Shane said. The next 3 after 5 I could put at 5. It was very, very, very close, but I have Andrews at 5 as well. And just kind of alluding to both, I'm not going to go into detail with it. He's a great tight end when he's healthy. He's Lamar's go-to guy. If he's healthy, he'll put up fantasy points. So don't be afraid to have him on your roster. Jason, who do you have at 5?
Bowers. Brock Bowers,
okay.
like you said, he's an athlete. He's a pass catcher. So I wasn't going to leave him out of my top 5.
No, yeah. And okay, so our top 5 are basically all the same people, just in different different
orders.
And I figured that would happen. And I think our next 5 would be the same players. The tight end landscape is thin, but it's not like you kind of know who the top tight ends are going to be.
Who was 6 for y'all? I'm just curious.
Kyle Pitts.
I have Kyle Pitts at 6.
Okay, because I was back and forth on mine. It was Hawkinson or Pitts.
See, I had
Hawk
right there too.
Just for the sake of it, let's not explain it. We can do it on a different episode. But go ahead and list 6 through 10. Just say your order 6 through
10. Pitts, Hawk, Kelsey, Kittle, Ingram, Njoku.
Okay, so
wait, was that too many?
That was 11. You went to 11, but it doesn't even matter, because your 6 through 11 are the exact same as my 6 through 11. Not all same order.
I swapped Kittle and Njoku.
Ooh.
Okay, so
I like that actually.
So you have Njoku at 11 at 9 and Kittle at 11.
Yeah.
So
10.
There you go.
10.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Shane and I had the exact same order, and Jason was one off from basically tight ends 6 through 11. So
if you don't have one of those guys in fantasy football, good luck. Take a shotgun shot into the dark of 12 through 15, whatever. Yeah.
Well, just out of curiosity, real quick, where'd you have Jake Ferguson and Dalton Schultz?
Schultz has fallen so far down my rankings.
Okay. He's outside of my 15. Either that or he's sitting at 15.
I have him at 19.
Okay.
Which is so unfortunate because he has constantly been like a top 12, like constant top 12 guy. And yeah, to put him like 19 is really sad.
Well, and so where do you have Ferguson?
Ferguson's currently my 12, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I have him at 14 or 13. I have him at 13.
Same.
Can I tell you the one that surprised me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have Dallas Goedert at 15.
I have him right around there, I think. I need to look back at my extended rankings, but I'm pretty sure I have him right around there.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll post that out. The big thing is too, guys, when you're looking at these tight ends, obviously your top 5, and more than likely your top 10, the next 5 are going to be pretty solidified. They're going to be pretty secure in those rankings, in those at least top 10. But that's not to say like guys like Dalton Schultz or Dallas Goedert. You're talking about such a slim margin of points from them being at 19 to like 12, right? Those tight ends outside the top 10, they're within points of each other. So we're not saying that they're bad tight ends. Obviously, they're in the NFL. They're good, and they can jump. I mean, they can jump. The tight end landscape is so on and off.
Oh yeah,
right?
It's spike weeks. It's one of the biggest spike week things. Unless you have the top 5 guys, maybe the top 7 guys on the list, you're gonna have massive like highs and lows, which sucks. But like
it sucks bad.
It also sucks to invest so heavily in a position that sometimes like even like George Kittle is a primary example of like he's gonna constantly be a top 5, 6 tight end, but he's constantly gonna be a pain in your ass as a fantasy manager because he'll put up a week of 26 and he'll put up a week of 2. And like that is the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And so like just trying to predict that. Like he's one of my favorite best ball candidates, but he is a terrible like managed league people.
Yes. Yeah, it's rough. It's rough in the streets inside the landscape. So if you can, go inquire one of the top 5. You'll feel safe and you'll be happy, right? Jason, did you have anything to add on that?
No, you said it all.
We said it all, eh? Okay, let's get into the next one here.
The NFL draft.
Yeah, Shane, you're going to do a little NFL draft preview. Shane's been amped up about this, so we're going to let him take the reins on it. So, Shane, go ahead. Get on after it.
Alrighty, folks. The NFL draft, as we spoke about earlier, is this upcoming Thursday. We will be doing a live show during the draft. So tune in for that. We'll be an ultimate sidekick. We'll give reactions to fantasy relevant situations and updates about, just our favorite landing spots that have happened and outlooks for how it helps your players. Obviously, if it's a defensive guy, we still will talk about them, we promise, but it's not going to be as sexy. I'm sorry. Now, the biggest question that is currently happening in the Twitterverse, as well as fantasy football in general, is with a guy named Adonai Mitchell. And it is completely a possibility that he ends up in the first round. And it is completely a possibility we don't hear his name called till day 2. Vegas wants us to believe he's going in day 1. However, if the Chiefs are on the clock, I don't think that he matches what they would like. So if that is the ultimate kicker, if you're saying that the top 5 wide receivers are gone and everybody else is taking their flavor of the month of wide receiver, I don't see the Chiefs taking Adonai. So Adonai Mitchell is out for me, not just as a Chiefs fan, but as a dynasty manager, because if the NFL does not value him as a first-round pick, he's not worth being on your roster. He is too much of a roster bubble question. His draft capital will ultimately predict his career, I believe. So now, that is my...
Shane, before you go on, explain, so what are the biggest knocks on his future? as a first round prospect versus a second round prospect? I mean, what are they saying about him? Why he would not be in the first round? Because he's obviously his body type is pretty good suited for the NFL.
Yeah. So the biggest joke is that it is film guys versus analytics guys, and the film guys love Adonai. Adonai. I don't remember how to say. Anyways, the guy from Texas, the tall
Adonai.
guy, the tall one from Texas. He so the film guys love him, and this may be more of an indictment on Quentin Ewers. We'll find out if everybody's wrong and he balls out. It's a huge indictment on how bad Quentin Ewers is actually. But the counting stats that exist for him. So like if you look at like how he produced in college, it is absolutely abysmal. Like he is at the bottom of the majority of counting stats. So your average depth of target, your percentage of targets, all of those really in-depth numbers that like the analytics guys look at, those are the things that he doesn't match well on. So I think he had like an 18% target share, which in college is abysmal. And he had a 1.9% like yards per reception, or like basically ADOT. Like he was not, when he received the ball, he wasn't very efficient with it. And so there becomes an issue of, well, is he a translatable product from college where he was a very okay wide receiver to getting him in the NFL and utilizing the skills that he has? Because he is a freak of nature if you look at the combine stats. So
right,
that's where the big parsing is. And if he gets first round draft capital, then somebody in the NFL is secure enough that he is the dude, like, or can be the dude on somebody's team. And if he is passed with his body type and his physicality and goes to the second round, he becomes Keon Coleman as well. So like those two are like the biggest like fallers or risers, depending on if they go in the first round or if they go in the second round.
Jason, you got anything on that?
Well, I'm just looking at his draft grades and whatnot. He currently ranks as a third on the he currently ranked third on the athleticism score for the draft combine, and everything about him is positive. There's not very many weaknesses that they're talking about. It's just aggression from game to game, intensity, and sometimes allows smaller players to get into space and catches. I can't speak either. But like what Shane said, what's Vegas have him at? Is it just 32 and a half?
Yeah, it's 32. Well, yeah, it's 32 and a half. You can also take it as him to be drafted in the first round,
Right.
and it's plus 320 for him to go in the first round right now.
My thing is, I don't see how the Bills pass on him, nor I don't see how the Chiefs pass on him.
There are a couple of schools of thought to that. I think that there's a very good chance the Chiefs don't take a wide receiver in the first round.
Okay.
So I think that everybody's projecting this with the Rashee Rice news, which is bad, but they also have Hollywood in the room now. And
Correct.
the adults in the room are making that decision. They got Rashee Rice in the second round last year. They're not afraid to attack the depth later and figure it out. So it would not shock me if they take an offensive tackle if one falls over one of these question mark wide receivers. I do think that he gets past the Bills, but only because I believe there's a very solid chance the Bills would like to have Ryan Thomas Jr. in the blue and red next year. So I think that that's the big hiccup, is if they trade up, I don't think that anybody in the back half of that last third is going to value Mitchell the same way that we do as fantasy analysts.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Plus, wouldn't you rather have Xavier Worthy?
Yes.
That's what it comes down to. If you're going to pick one of the Texas guys, would you rather have Mitchell or Worthy? And then it just becomes this giant, well, would you rather have Ladd McConkey or Mitchell? And then
Yeah. Mhm.
Unfortunately, he comes out on the short end of the stick like 90% of the time on those.
Yeah, dude, because I'm taking Ladd over Mitchell.
Yeah, like it just becomes a continuous falling knife, and so it ends up like he's a second round guy. So he's
So
the guy that
could he end up like in a situation that DK Metcalf ended up in, or Amon-Ra St. Brown?
yeah, I don't. He may be a DK guy. I think of him more like Kenny Galladay with like
Okay, yeah, that's a good
his
comparison.
skill set. I don't necessarily like him and Keon Coleman both have like that Kenny Galladay, like Marvin Jones style to them. I will say that he does have significantly better burners than Kenny did. So like maybe a fast
Yeah,
Kenny.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I just think that that's a big like red flag, and he'll be one of like the top people to like watch on if you truly think that you want him on your team, or if you're drafting like right before the draft, like if your draft is this upcoming weekend, like take into account, hey, he may be a faller, and that is a big red flag for fantasy, because the
Right.
draft capital does matter significantly, and those first round guys are certifiable talents, and everybody after that is a big melting pot of question marks.
I like that. I like that analysis of Mitchell, because you've heard hypes from both ends of the spectrum. You know, you've heard hypes about him going high, even high in the first round. It started, and then he let's drop him down to the 20s in the first round, and then let's just keep dropping him out of the first round into the second round. So I like that. I like that. It's something to wrap your brain around, and it's gonna be something that's very interesting to watch, right? Because there are still, I'm sure, people out there that are saying Adonai is one of the better wide receivers in the draft versus, your Ladd McConkey, your Xavier Worthy. He's the better Texas wide receiver. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because I'm leaning more towards you, Shane. I started out pretty high on Adonai, and I thought he'd be a fantastic fit for the Chiefs. But now I'm like, I can totally see the way you're flipping the script on it, because there are other people that have kind of the similar analysis that you've come up with. So it's going to be interesting to watch. It really is.
So speaking on rise, well, we talked about the biggest faller. Now let's talk about like everybody's darling, and that's Ricky Pearsall. And we hit on him pretty hard when we did our prospect episode earlier in the year.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky's outcome in the NFL draft, if it is positive, will significantly matter on his landing spot, and it will significantly matter if he is a true slot receiver at the NFL level. And so at the current cost of getting Ricky, which pre-draft ADP is like, he's like the 205, is really steep for a guy with those question marks. And if he ends up in a favorable spot, it will be very beneficial, and he's probably going to skyrocket to like the early part of your second round, maybe even higher. And at that point, I'm probably not going to try to target him, because as much as I like Pretty Ricky as a player, he is still a 23-year-old wide receiver who didn't break out until after two Heisman quarterbacks left him, Anthony Richardson and Jaden Daniels. And yes, players make that jump, but to make the jump again to the NFL is a very big question mark. And I don't mean that with any disrespect to Pretty Rick, but I just want to add caution that do not get embroiled in the hype. Like, do not get caught up on the wave and chase these guys up draft boards, because that happens every year. There's always a draft darling, and he's going to go up the board, and you're going to take him about 4 slots higher than you should. You're going to trade into the second round pick from an asset that you have, and it's going to bite you in the ass. So preemptively caution. Do not rush to place these guys on a pedestal, because there are question marks around all of their production profiles going in the second round. So, and Ricky's not excluded. And I know you love Ricky, Matt, and I'm sorry. I don't mean to. And I hope he lands with Pittsburgh. I honestly do. That's one of my favorite landing spots for him. hit that, or I mean, the Bills would be sick. For those of you that are on our podcast, Matt is currently flashing his Steelers football sweatshirt at us. And then additionally, one other player that should be on people's radar that is kind of falling off of people's radar.
Ooh.
Xavier Legette.
I was going to ask you about him. I was actually going to bring that name up.
Listen, Legette is another one of those late breakout guys. He does have extenuating circumstances. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard his story. He lost both of his parents his freshman year of college. He got hurt. And then, yeah, it was a massive, massive story. And, like, he's fought through all of it. He's an amazing human. Like, everybody should be rooting for Xavier Legette to succeed.
Oh, yeah.
There are big question marks about whether he can translate to the NFL. He is a DK type, and he is lacking some serious refinement. So watching to see if he falls. If he goes in day 2, you feel comfortable. If he falls further, you get more and more worried if you are someone who wants to draft Xavier Legette. But I'm just going to put a stamp on this. I think he goes in the second round. I think that he is possibly a target for the Chiefs at the very end of the second round. I think that there is a decent chance he ends up on the Bucks at like pick, was that 59 in the second round?
Yeah, something like that.
So those are favorable landing spots for him. And if it becomes so landing spot dependent after that. So.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I heard that he really excelled in kick returns, and that's where, like, people were like, okay. Because I don't know if you have his size in front of you, but isn't he like 6'1", 6'2", like 215 pounds or something like that?
6'1", 220.
Okay, 6'1", 220, and ran a 4.3 something?
4.39.
4 something?
Yeah, dude's got
almost
burners.
4.4.
He's a tank that has burners.
Yeah, that is kind of like a DK, but shorter. I mean,
yeah, and he was labeled at 6'3" at South Carolina. So he
with shoes on, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, they always fudge those just a little bit. Just like my coach said that I was 6'4" in high school. It's fine. Yeah, like he has the game speed, and the biggest question is if he can translate to the next level. And I really do think that he's a boomer bust at this point. And I'm leaning more towards there's more than a coin flip. I would say 60-40 that he is a boom and not a bust because of the extenuating circumstances. However, you have to realize that every year you add, and for those on, every year you add from 21 decreases the likelihood of him hitting by like a factor of 10. So if he were a 21-year-old wide receiver coming into the draft with this profile, he would be a 38% chance to hit. But him being turning 34 in his rookie season, or 24 in his rookie
24.
season, he probably only has about a 14% chance of hitting.
Yeah.
And
I hope he does.
Yeah.
I hope he does.
I really, really hope he does. But you have to take that into consideration as a dynasty player and count accordingly.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you have anything else, or do you want
to draft Jonathan Brooks?
Some more. Jonathan Brooks.
That's all.
That's it.
And
maybe what we do, guys, is obviously next week, it's the NFL draft. We're going to be joining you guys. Maybe we ought to get on slightly before, like maybe 10, 15 minutes early, and start the podcast. Talk about some predictions, maybe even add some bets in there, especially if we're going to do it live and people can go and smash these bets before the draft actually starts and just get it all hyped up and ready for it.
Yeah.
I mean, does that sound like a plan with you guys?
Yep.
Definitely.
Sweet, man. Well, I'm going to give Shane one of these for just getting a little draft preview, a little applause. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
That's good. That's good. Let's get people hyped up. So, that being said, guys, remember, go follow us on all our social media everywhere. Okay. Every podcasting platform. Hit that follow, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, guys. We do appreciate you guys and everything that you do. And that being said, y'all know what to do.
Also draft Audric Estime.
All I can think about is the Drake quote, draft day, Johnny Manziel. Let's get it.
All right, y'all. We love you all to the moon and back. Until next time, next week, live draft show. See you then. Bye-bye.